Hey YouTube, Diaz Brothers here in Twin Brothers React. We're going to do a reaction video on the interview, which seems to be slamming the internet, of Piers Morgan and Andrew Tate. I don't side with either one. I think there are certain things that I agree with that Andrew Tate has said and certain things that I disagree. Piers Morgan, same thing. He talks about certain stances on certain issues that I'm sure you can agree, Fern, that we agree with, and there are certain things that we disagree. We're just going to more or less react on where we think the moral compass is going well and where it's skewed. So here we go.
We used to be solid, not falling apart. Things never not okay when you were mine. You used to be honest, not pulling
to account. If outrageous opinions are read aloud, they can be challenged and exposed for what they are. If they're silenced, the person holding these views can become a martyr. So that's why I invited Andrew Tate to come here tonight, and he joins me now live. So Andrew, well, welcome, first of all. You've come all the way from Romania to do this interview.
Correct.
What do you hope to achieve from this interview? Why are you here?
It'd be interesting to have a conversation with you. You've certainly been the subject of your own divided opinions in the world. There's a lot of people who would say some of the things you say are perhaps dangerous or toxic. So I thought you'd be a good person to speak to about this subject.
I didn't know much about you before this year, and then I suddenly became very aware of you, as the world did, because, as I said earlier, you were the #1 subject searched on Google ahead of Donald Trump.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was even possible. Yeah. Why did you get suddenly so popular stroke infamous, do you think?
I exploded. I certainly didn't do that with magic. I've been on the internet for a very long time. I think in the world we live in now, as the other side, the people who disagree with me, as they get more and more tyrannical in their censorships and their hate mobs, etc., as standard masculine practices are deemed toxic, I didn't put a magic spell on everybody. I managed to accumulate a large amount of affinity with the male populace across the Western world because I'm simply saying things that many men believe, think, and feel.
The problem I would say is I want to play you just a clip off the top. This is from Joe Rogan, who's somebody I absolutely love.
Sure.
And I think it explains to me what I presume my issue with you is going to be, right?
Correct.
And you.
All right,
So I want to stop the video there for a second just to address that Piers immediately deflected to attack him is what it seems like. Because he's about to pull up a video saying, oh, this is where you weren't doing so well in an interview. It's like Andrew Tate is just trying to set up a frame of what's happening in society at the moment. It's very easy right now as a society to hate men because there's so many avenues that are doing that. Like people on Instagram, people on TikTok can rave about man hate all day. And they're exalted and honored and literally funded by companies to be sending this message out there to young men, which is very damaging to our youth because men need to feel valued. We operate in our divine masculine when we feel respected and when we feel appreciated.
Facts.
If I ever feel disrespected by a woman, that's the end of the relationship.
Yeah.
Depending on the severity. Or if a man disrespects me, it's immediately going to be an altercation or a fight. Men need to feel respected among their peers.
Not physical. Got to clarify.
Yeah, not physical.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to point that out. I'm not on Andrew Tate's side. I'm not on Piers Morgan's side. I just want to point out that Andrew Tate was not even allowed to set a full frame when he's already being attacked. That seems to be Piers's goal here, but let's see what happens.
You have absolutely got the right to try and persuade me otherwise.
Sure.
But Joe Rogan said this about you.
My 12-year-old and my 14-year-old asked me about Andrew Tate.
And
my
what'd you say?
14-year-old
What'd you
asked
say?
me, I said he's a legit world champion kickboxer. I go, I like him a lot. Why do you like him? And I was asking him. And they said he says a lot of funny stuff on Twitter and TikTok. He f***ed up with the misogynist.
Yes.
Because if he didn't do that, if he just did the pro-male stuff.
So I thought that was interesting because when I've gone over everything that's been at the centre of the debate about Andrew Tate, I come down with Joe Rogan in the sense that there's a lot of stuff you say I agree with. You know, I've got 3 sons in their 20s. It's not easy, actually, being a young male in the modern world. And I think a lot of the things that you say about that can resonate with them. Yeah. The problem comes with the, I don't know, 10, 20% or whatever of your output, which on the face of it appears to be blatant misogyny. And when you couple that with your massive influence and huge reach, that is why the social media companies have decided to effectively cancel you. I don't believe in cancellation.
So I'm kind of on Piers' side in the sense that I would agree about 20% of what Tate says is like really a little rough and a little aggressive of a stance. But 80% of what he says is like really good advice, like excellent, amazing. We need role models like that.
Yeah, you can't throw out like a whole person just because of some of the things that they say, unless they're clearly like I don't know, doing some super harsh propaganda that's actually promoting violence and stuff like that. But
yeah, I just wanted to bring up the point that the 20% that even I don't agree with because it's too aggressive, I would not label that misogyny, because that's misogyny by definition is the hatred or contempt of women.
Dude, and okay. Tell me if this isn't true. Some of Andrew Tate's stuff, because I've seen some of his stuff too. Bro, some of that's a show.
Yeah, for sure. He definitely.
I mean,
puts on a little bit of
he
a
exaggerates a little bit, right? But
yeah.
but people give him a hard time because
because he literally likes trolling. Like if you watch his regular what is it called, War Room, like where they meet or whatever.
The War Room.
He trolls people all the time. That's just part of the personality.
Yeah, he likes, and that's kind of a man thing in a way. Like we like to test other men. Like, where are you at, man? Like, what do you really believe? Because a lot of people nowadays, they don't want to say what they really mean.
Yeah, and like I know there's a lot of hatred because some of the trolling seems like go cook for a woman. That's not hatred of women. It's literally just enforcing like gender roles.
Yeah.
And that's not hatred. It's just it's a little bit of an aggressive stance. Like I would never tell my woman go cook, but if she would cook for me, that's so amazing because I want to be feeling supported as a man, as the main provider.
It's a balance.
Yeah. And
you do the things that make you a provider, and she does the things that make her nurture.
Right. And Andrew Tate, I can tell you by watching his stuff, he believes that he should be the sole provider and women shouldn't have to work if they don't want to when they're with him.
Yeah.
And that's why he expects them to support him.
It's a preference.
Right. And I don't think that he should tell his girl, like, go cook, but he doesn't actually do that. Like, he says that, but he doesn't actually put it into practice and say it to his woman. You know what I mean? He just says that as kind of a part of his character or whatever. But let's continue.
Huge reach. That is why the social media companies have decided to effectively cancel you. I don't believe in cancellation. I don't believe in censorship particularly. That's why I've invited you to come on the show. But I do think a lot of the things you've said are blatant misogyny. Do you accept that?
So you made a very interesting point there. You just said on the face of it appear to be blatantly misogynistic. I understand that on the face of some of the long format content I've made, if you're going to take a few seconds out of hours, chop it up, put it all over social media, accompanied with my massive fame, then things can absolutely not be taken out of context. I do not hate women in any regard. I have no negative relationship with women. No women have come forward saying I've hurt them. I have no criminal record for hurting women. There's no way I can be seen as the face or the devil in regards to how men treat women on the planet. I'm absolutely and utterly the opposite. I believe in protecting and providing. I've been misunderstood. There's been large contingents of people who have tried very hard to purport lies about me. And the truth of the matter is, I've been producing content for a very long time. Hours and hours of videos been cut down to 2 or 3 seconds of clip. Those clips have gone viral and people misunderstand me.
But I think you've used this phrase of be taken out of context. And I'm not sure that is correct in the sense that it still comes out of your mouth. And some of the things some of the things you've said, I just think are blatantly.
Well, let's do them. Let's hear them.
Let's go through some.
Sure.
Right? So you said this about Me Too / rape. This is probably 40% of the reason I moved to Romania. In Eastern Europe, none of this garbage flies. You go to the police and say he raped me back in 1988. They'll say, well, you should have done something about it back then.
Yeah, so the point I was making was obviously at the height of the Me Too scandal, and also if we look at Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, there's been a lot of high-profile cases where men have been accused of things they did not do without evidence, and their lives have been completely and utterly destroyed.
Right.
When I say these things, people sit and say that, oh, he hates women. I don't hate women. I think rape is disgusting. I would take a stronger stance on rape than the British government. I think these people should face the death penalty. But to sit and say that women without evidence can go forward and just make up accusations against men, even though they've been repeatedly proven to destroy men's lives at will, is absolutely and utterly
What about a
asinine.
woman who was raped back in 1988 and goes to the plea?
So do you feel there should be more backlash? I think there should, like, straight up, like,
For rapists? Grapists?
no, like people that do false reporting.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, I've seen court TV, for example, like any court shows. I've literally seen men that came out, they're broken men. They used to be strong. And then they go into the courtroom 5-6 years after being imprisoned for something they never did. They get acquitted and they're crying because they lost so many years of their life over a false accusation of a woman that just wanted to do reputation destruction.
There are dudes that go to death row and no one was a voice for them.
Yeah, and I think there should be a harsher punishment for people that lie like that for reputation destruction. I think that they should serve double the time. That's my personal stance. If you are willing to literally destroy a person's life, because after this person, even if they're acquitted, the reputation that they lost and 5 years in jail or more, sometimes, they can never recover from that. Literally never.
And some social stigmas is like, oh, well, you were accused, so no matter what, you did it. I don't care that they acquitted you.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, you lose anyway.
Right.
It's kind of stupid.
Then the man should face absolute and complete justice.
But do you understand that when that clip appears on TikTok as a clip, and all right,
as a clip, completely.
Okay, but it's still something that came out of your mouth. Do you accept that when that appears on TikTok, a lot of young, maybe not as smart as you, young men, right? Impressionable, teenagers, will read that and go, what's he saying here? Is he saying that rape doesn't exist?
No, I completely. I'm not going to sit here as a professional and say that I can't be taken out of context. What I will say is that one small sentence you've taken was from a 1-hour video where I explained that, of course, rape is disgusting. Of course, everybody should be punished for their crimes regardless of when they happen. But people are not perfect, male and female. And if you give women the opportunity to destroy men's lives without evidence, there's going to be a contingent of women who will do that. I'm trying to make a balanced and nuanced argument in a world where people have no attention span. They're going to take a few seconds, put it online, decide someone's good or bad, not be interested in the longer format video. And here I am. No, I'm certainly a person who takes personal responsibility. That's who I am as a person. But we live in a world now with TikTok videos 5 or 6 seconds long. There's no content.
Do you think women are the property of men?
I think he handled that really well.
Yeah, I want to address a small point here that there's a lot of people, especially in like the left wing, the leftists, the extremists. A lot of feminists do this too. A lot of channels like Hassan and people like that. They'll take things out of context and then create content around it to destroy a person's reputation without giving the full context of what the message was entirely, like Tate was trying to say. And
drama gets views.
Right, but one thing that I've noticed is this is done more when it's promoting like good masculine values or how a man should really carry himself. Those channels, those avenues for young men are being attacked more so, I think, and from what I've seen, than almost every other topic that we could possibly cover. Just men are gravely under attack, and Tate just happens to be an influencer for males, young males, and a role model kind of. And because of that, in my opinion, he's being attacked. Not because of the misandry or whatever. I just don't think that the powers that be that are censoring him want strong, empowered, masculine males, which is the majority of his message. the misogyny that you might label that he does isn't actually misogyny. They're just blowing it up out of proportion so that they can cancel him and not have a good role model for young men, because they want to feminize men. That's why and I have nothing against transgenders. I have gay friends, not transgender friends, just because, well, I just don't. But I have gay friends. I have nothing against gay people. I just think that they're a little confused. But that's my personal take on it. And I think that we need to move back into more solidified gender roles, because there's an epidemic of men simping over women. That's why OnlyFans is so popular. And that's why it's making so much money, because an alpha male like my brother and I, we would never give money to a woman on the internet that we don't know, that we have no chance with, no future, nothing. It's just, it's a simp move. But let's continue.
No, the point I was making...
Why have you said they are?
Because I made a religious point. I said that when a man marries a woman, the woman's father walks her down the aisle, and hands her away to the man. Traditionally, this is what it says in the Bible. I'm a religious person. I believe in God. I live in the most religious country in the world.
So you do think that the woman becomes the men...
I think she takes his last name.
I mean, let's watch the clip that you said about this so that we can get it in context.
So I think my sister is her husband's property, yes. When a bride is walking down the aisle to marry the groom, the father walks next to her and gives her away. True or false?
Absolutely.
But I've been married twice, as it turns out, and on both occasions, I didn't believe that the woman was being handed to me as chattel, as property.
Perhaps the way the reason I'm asked that question repeatedly, and I'm asked in a loaded way.
So would you rephrase what you said there?
Now, that's an interesting point about phrasing. The way I would say things before I was famous, I have to take personal responsibility and accept that if I make a video that 500 people see and 1% of them misunderstand it, that's not a problem. If I make a video that 5 million people see and 1% of them understand it.
So specifically on that point, I think my sister is her husband's property.
She took his last name. She married him. She wanted to join his family. She has said it herself.
Right, so she's
still a sovereign individual. She's absolutely not a sovereign individual.
Property means that the husband owns your sister.
Listen, my friend, if we want to argue about this, you need to go back to the Bible, to the Quran. You need to argue with religious leaders.
I'm not talking about anything in the Bible or Quran.
But that's what it says.
No, I'm asking you what you think.
I think that if a woman marries a man and she decides to take his last name, that they have different roles and responsibilities within that marriage, and I believe that...
That's not the question.
I believe the father... The father hands her...
Don't behave like a politician.
The father hands her to the man.
Right, but don't be a politician, because I think you're a straight talker, right? You keep telling me you're a straight talker. I think my sister is her husband's property. Do you regret saying it like that?
I understand that with my newfound fame, perhaps it could be phrased differently. However, I still believe that a woman is given to the man in marriage. That's what I believe.
Yeah, but not as property.
No, the property is the word that other people use when they ask me the question.
But as an equal partner in a loving union. That's what marriage actually means. It doesn't mean that when you get married, the woman is given to you as a bit of chattel.
Agreed.
So why say it?
But that's the way that people ask me the question. People say to me, they ask the question.
Hang on, you can't blame people for asking you questions. Surely, if you want to be accountable for what you've said,
So I want to cover something real quick, because I don't think Tate will go into this. I could be wrong. But I think what Tate is trying to say is it can be interpreted as property, but really a man's job is to be a protector and a provider, and provider is the key word there. So Andrew believes in having a bunch of women. I mean, he talks about it all the time. And he wants to provide for all of them. He believes that's the man's role. And I agree with that. I think that a man should be the sole provider. We have more energy than women because we have more testosterone and we have more muscle mass, and we can deal with a lot more stress, and we're just built differently. Men and women are physiologically different. I can do a heck of a lot more grueling stuff outside for longer periods of time than any woman I know. And I'm sure you can say the same. Now, because of that, I think that a man should take up the reins and do as much providing as he possibly can all the time. He should literally be like a force to reckon with, battling against the world and succeeding for his woman. That's his job. Now, having said that, that's a tremendous, tremendous responsibility.
It is.
And having a woman by your side that is the supporting figure so that you can have peace at home, so you can have a warm cooked meal, so that you can have the things that are not directly producing for your household. If those things are covered by your partner, that allows me as a man, or whoever as a man, to do that much more in productivity and accelerate our growth as a man. And I don't think the word property needs to be used here because people get offended by that word. But essentially, if a woman is only the supporting role, and trust me, it's a big role. I shouldn't say only, it's a big role. Without the support, there is no acceleration of growth. A woman doesn't take the forefront. She's not taking the bullets, per se. When someone breaks into the house, the man's expected to do something about it. So in that sense,
Did you see the interview with
he's-
XQC?
yeah, I did.
That was ridiculous.
In that sense,
Yeah, don't be XQC, guys.
in that sense, a man is the leader because he has to be. That's his role. Now, when someone is given to you as part of your team, but you're the lead, then all the responsibility of where your family goes and its direction is entirely, the weight is on you as a man. So in that sense, a woman isn't necessarily property, but they become a responsibility of the man because they're not providing as much as the man would, if that makes sense. Before I had a job when I was a child, my father was responsible for me, and he protected and provided for me. And in that sense, I was like pseudo property to him because he was responsible for me, just like you would be of an expensive chain. And I couldn't provide for myself because I was a child. And I'm not attributing that to women because they can if they want to, because they're adult women. But I'm saying if a man's doing his job and providing a heck of a lot more financially than a woman, then that woman should be comfortable in taking the back seat on finances and just being the supporting figure. And in that sense, the man has a lot more responsibility, and the responsibility attributes to, I guess people are going to be triggered by the word property, so I'm not going to use that. But when you're responsible for something,
Because property is attributed to owning something. So it's
right.
like you don't own another person. That's basically slavery, but
Yeah.
But you are held responsible for someone that is in your family. So it's like you own in a sense, like the right to protect your significant other or family.
A really good way to describe this is like, if I make $120,000 a year and my wife makes 40, then she could comfortably stop working and I would be the sole provider.
Don't blame the question.
I own the response.
It'd be like me asking you a question now and you say something and then say, well, actually, I blame you for asking.
I understand, Piers. Piers, I understand. I believe the woman is given to the man. I believe she's given away by the father. I believe she belongs to the man.
So
If she belongs to the man.
fundamentally, all right. So fundamentally, you do believe that a woman becomes a man's property at
I
marriage.
believe she belongs to the man in marriage, correct.
Right. Oh, you see, that to me is misogyny.
And you're entitled to your opinion.
Right. But do you not understand why?
All right. I'm not sure why he labels that misogyny.
Because there's no hatred of women if you think that they're property. You can love your I love this chain. It's my property. You know?
Okay, so misogyny is
hatred or contempt of women.
Right. So it's like
there's no hatred when you label someone property.
It's kind of
like, because I guarantee you, if you were to ask Tate, would you consider your children property? He would say yes. Until they can provide for themselves.
Yeah, but it's kind of weird. Like the way Piers's train of thought. I would want to ask Piers, like, do you think it's misogyny? Therefore, if you define misogyny and you consider this misogynistic, then I married someone that I hate. Right? That's like the only interpretation I find from Piers's perspective. I don't know. It's a weird perspective.
People think it is misogyny.
I understand why some people can be very offended by what I say. What they do is they take a point like that and they ignore all the other points I make the other way around.
Yeah, but that's why I've repeatedly asked you about that line to see if you've changed your position. But the reality is you haven't.
It's not about changing positions. I'm a full-grown adult and I stick by the things I say and I'm responsible for them.
Which, by the way, is fine.
Absolutely.
But what you did say at the start of this little exchange, you said, you know, I wouldn't maybe say things the same way now that I did before I was famous. And yet, actually, you've doubled down and said exactly the same thing.
On certain points.
So that is what you believe. And that's my point.
Yes.
I'm trying to work out, look, I don't know you. We've just met, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to work out who Andrew Tate is and what you actually believe. I don't want to twist anything at all.
Then let me make it very, very clear to the camera. I believe a woman is given to the man in marriage. I believe that. I also believe a man has a duty to protect and provide for her. I believe a man should lay down his life if something happens or his wife's life is threatened.
All right. He's describing marriage perfectly because it's not, his first word was duty. And your duty to your spouse is your main priority. It's not happiness. It's not sex or any other perk that comes with it. It's duty to the other person. So if you are respected as a man and you provide love to your woman and you discuss things and you take care of each other's duties, which for the man typically in a more traditional marriage, it's to provide, and for the woman typically it's to nurture, then you'll be fine.
And by the way, guys, if Andrew Tate considers his woman property, which some people will be triggered by, but then in the same sentence will say that he should lay down his life to protect her, that means he doesn't hate his woman. Equals not misogyny, because it's not hatred of women or contempt of women.
Yeah, you can't lay down your life for someone
you hate. You can't do that. I'm not going to be like, I'm going to die
it's
for
a
you, but I hate your
contradictory
guts.
statement, man.
Yeah.
Jeez. All right.
I believe that women and children first are on the lifeboats.
But men,
I believe that men.
But a man doesn't own a woman.
It's not. No. It's okay.
Unless they literally buy them as a slave.
Well, obviously, we're not talking about that. We're talking about religious, biblical marriage. We're talking about something else.
Yeah, but I'm a Christian. I don't believe that I own my wife.
Do you believe your wife was given away to you when she took your last name?
I believe that there is a process where a father traditionally walks his daughter down the aisle and hands his daughter to this man, and they stand there and become a union of two loving people in a partnership. No, there's no ownership involved.
I didn't say ownership.
He's not selling her. The father of the bride isn't selling his daughter.
No, absolutely.
That's what property means.
She becomes a member of your family.
Is it?
I think we're arguing over semantics.
We're not, though, because fundamentally, I don't believe a man owns a woman. You do.
Well, I don't think a man owns any sovereign individual. I don't think we live in the world of slavery. I don't own any men or any woman.
Right.
Nobody owns
When
anybody.
you use phrases like property, that's what you imply.
I understand.
And so my point again is, you're a smart guy, right?
Correct,
There's no denying that. You're smart, you're a good talker. I've seen a lot of the stuff. But what I don't think you quite fully understand.
No, I understand very well.
When young, impressionable people who are not as smart see things like, I think my sister is her husband's property, yes, and you've just reaffirmed that belief, they think.
Yeah, I can kind of see where Piers is coming from, because like he could have handled that better. Personally, if I had said something like that, like on the internet, it's so hard to be like a content creator and have thousands or even hundreds of thousands of videos of yourself over the course of years and not something be taken out of context. We say a lot of words, and unless you're someone like Jordan Peterson, a lot of times you don't think those things all the way through, or how many people are going to watch that, or how they may be misconstrued or taken out of context. So
yeah, if this dude has thousands of videos, I'm sure you could take like 300 clips easy out of all that content of stuff out of context when he was just joking around.
Yeah, how many people, especially politicians, have you seen contradict themselves? You'll see one video where they said X and another video where they said Y, and they're two opposing views. But when you put the videos next to each other, even if they said them like 20 years apart, now they look like an idiot. But it's like, don't we all do that? I don't know.
Yeah,
it's kind of being unfair.
Yeah, I saw a case.
It's disingenuous.
I saw a case of cancel culture where they were trying to cancel this dude for saying something that he said like 15 years ago on Twitter. Like what?
People don't even take into account that like people learn from their mistakes too.
Yeah.
So it's like I may have said something 10 years ago that I didn't mean now.
Yeah, but also in the case that I mentioned, cancel culture wasn't a thing 15 years ago, but now people are like butterflies that become offended by everything. So now that it's a thing, they looked through 15 years ago, now that it's not acceptable when it was back then.
Yeah, I hate so much seeing, oh, so and so made a comment on Twitter like 15 years ago and they got canceled today.
Yeah. And like you guys will notice that a lot more when you look at current comedy. The only person that's really talking about controversial stuff is maybe like Dave Chappelle because he's the GOAT. And people
Yeah, Dave is the goat.
don't get mad at him for talking about it, but literally everyone else has to walk on eggshells.
Yeah.
Kevin
Dude.
Hart talks about it.
All right, low key, I think Long Beach Griffey is uncancelable, bro.
Who?
Long Beach Griffey?
Oh, I haven't seen him. He's funny.
All right, that's the end of the video until he sees Long Beach Griffey. All right, anyway, let's continue.
They think that they have the right to own women.
I understand that very well, Piers. Which
That's
is
why people think you're a misogynist.
Completely. I understand all of this very well, which is why when you're saying I was backtracking, I'm not.
Do you have any regret, though, over the way you phrase this stuff?
Well, this is the point I was trying to make. The point I'm trying to make is when I was not nearly as famous and I was making long format content, I was not sitting there anticipating I'd become the most Googled man on the planet and that a few seconds could be taken out of context. That was not my anticipation.
No, but it's
I
still
didn't
what
plan.
you believed. It's what you believe now. So what's the difference?
It's not about, you're asking me, you're saying that young people who are
If
impressionable.
you said to me, look, Piers, honestly, I've had time to think about this and I wish I hadn't said it, I don't believe that. That's one thing. Actually, you've said the opposite. You said, actually, that's what I think, yeah.
I think that when
So it doesn't really matter whether you recorded it when you're famous or not famous. It's what you actually believe, right?
I believe that a man has a duty to protect and provide for a woman. I believe that a woman's father gives her away to the man. That's what I believe, and that's in my marriage. That's the circumstance I'm going to live under. If people want to live in a different scenario, that's completely theirs. Their prerogative.
You went on to say about authority over women. If I have a responsibility over her, I must have a degree of authority.
Yeah.
For the same reason, if I have responsibility over and people are going to use their mind, it's an example, an analogy. Responsibility over a child, I have to have some authority.
Yeah.
So you believe as part of your ownership or your property of the woman, you have authority over her.
No, I believe if you have
That's what you said.
Pierce said ownership. I want to point that out. But Tate already disputed that he doesn't think that any man or woman should own any other man or woman. Just want to point that out. That Piers is falling back on something that was already directly disputed and talked about.
It's a trap, bro.
Yeah.
He set up a trap. Tate, I don't know. I feel like he could have handled it better, but.
I believe if you have responsibility over something, you have to have a degree of authority or you can't be responsible.
Yeah, but authority means, again, that you're the boss.
The point I'm making, if you'll please let me finish on this point.
Hang on. What's wrong with being the boss? Is that bad? I thought you're supposed to be the boss if you're the man of the house. That's why they call it the man of the house.
I think, all right. So there's like two perspectives that come from that. One is like you get to have like, I guess, let's just call it executive authority. Like if there needs to be a decision done right now, men are typically logic oriented. So at the end of the day, if something needs to get done, it needs to get done. That's not to say you shouldn't discuss things with your spouse.
Yeah.
Or your significant other.
Absolutely.
You have to
I think-
discuss almost everything with them.
I think that a man should take a leadership role in order to even be respected by his woman. A woman doesn't want to make the hard decisions. That's your job as a man.
The reason the president has like as much authority as he does over Congress is like Congress is a lot of people and it may take them a long time to make a decision. So if there needs to be a decision on the fly, that's why the president is like, yo, we need to just go in and do this. And it's kind of the same in the household. It's like, you know, if you have one person who's really indecisive, one person who's very logical, very set, and is able to analyze those things, and especially if you trust them, the idea is based on trust, right? You trust they're going to make a good decision. And if they don't, and if you gave them the authority to do so, then it's like, okay, fine, we messed up, but we learn from it and we grow.
And one thing that I want to point out, because I've heard girls when I've talked to them about this. I have a lot of female friends. A woman should have input in the decisions of the household.
Absolutely.
However, I think the man should have more input than the woman. And I think women should actually agree with this, because women by nature date parallel and up the dominance hierarchy. So they will not take someone that is lower than them on the social dominance hierarchy. They always date up. And because of that, if you admire your man or you respect your man and that's why you're with him, then you should pick someone that you admire as a woman, that inspires you. That's why you should be with a man, someone that you can see a future with, that really inspires that future vision for you. If you believe that that is the man that is going to protect and provide for you and provide a good future, and he has a good vision and he has a good direction for your guys' life, then why shouldn't you have 51% of the decision? Because you already are with this guy because you've seen him as hella competent, and he's going to lead you and your eventual family when you get married in a good direction. So why shouldn't you have 51%? I mean, if he's the leader, he's supposed to. What is a company going to do if the manager has 49% and the employees have 51%? The company's going to collapse. You know what I mean? And marriage as an institution is very much like a company.
I would say manager and supervisor or something.
Right. So my current company, my supervisor is in a position above me, but he always treats me as a friend. And I believe that's how a relationship should be. That my manager does have authority over me, but he also treats me like a friend. And that, I believe, should be the stance of a husband and a wife. That I have authority to some degree because I've shown that I'm competent to be able to handle that. And the woman is basically acting as Mother Nature, saying, yes, you are worthy. I mean, I've never dated a single girl ever that didn't admire me in some aspect. That's how we got together, because I inspired her in some way, that I was a good man in some way, whether it be finances or whatever.
And by the way, if you're dating somebody that constantly challenges your decision making in the wrong way, a good example is like, let's say I'm a dude and I'm young and I'm dating a girl that I think is amazing, but she likes to go out and go clubbing with her girlfriends and I'm not allowed to go. You shouldn't be in that relationship. If she's challenging you on that, you go, okay, you can do that, but you're doing it as a single girl. So
The point I was trying to make was talking about the safety of a woman. She was walking alone at night, and I was saying, well, I wouldn't let my woman walk alone at night. And they said, well, you're not in charge of her. You don't get to decide what she does. I said, I understand, but if I'm responsible for her safety, and I'm the person who's burdened with making sure she is safe, I have to have the authority to say, don't put yourself in unsafe situations. The two things are linked.
Well, you don't have authority. You can absolutely have the right to say to the woman you're with, I don't think you should, but ultimately...
If she decides, then I can't force her.
Right, so authority implies that you have the ability...
Pretty much what I was going into, but like if you're dating a girl and she decides to go do that and she challenges you on that constantly, you have no business being in that relationship. She's gonna continue to do that, and most likely she's being influenced by her girlfriends anyway. You should be the number one influence in her life, not her girlfriends. It's a good way to get a cheater.
To control someone.
No, authority implies that I have the moral right to sit and say that that's an irresponsible thing to do, and I'm responsible for
That's not what authority means.
Well, I'm not going to. If you think I'm going to lock somebody up in their room, is that what you're implying?
No, I don't think you know what authority means.
I know what it means. I'm saying that if I
just a different description of what authority.
If I have responsibility for her safety, then I have to have the authority to tell her not to do unsafe.
Yeah, but authority means that you have some form of control over this woman.
I think you're trying to. What you're trying to do.
I'm only trying to get to what you think. Honestly, I am. I come with no agenda here at all.
I understand. And I'm explaining very, very clearly. If I have responsibility over said subject, I have to have authority over it. So let me say you have children, right?
Right.
You have responsibility for them.
No, I have legal authority over my children. That is very different to having legal authority over my wife or my female partner.
Completely. But the point I'm trying to make...
So you accept that?
I accept that...
Because you used the analogy of responsibility for a child.
My friend, these are very...
These are actually really important things.
They're important things, but you interrupt me every 5 seconds, so it's hard for me to actually explain the point.
He's not
The point
wrong.
I'm making here is very simple. You have children and you're responsible for their safety. So you're going to have authority to say, don't go out at night, perhaps, because you want them to be safe.
I have legal authority.
You have a legal authority.
Yeah.
Legal authority. I'm saying that if I had a woman, and the question where you've raised this soundbite from, I was asked.
All right, real quick. If you're married and something happens to your wife and you could have been there, but you were not there, aren't they going to blame the man? Like 99% of the time, it's going to be the man's fault anyway. So it's like, I get you, Andrew. I get you.
About protecting a woman, making sure she's safe. And I would say I wouldn't want her to go out at night on her own because I'm responsible for her safety. And someone said, well, you don't have authority over her to do that. And I said, well, no, I can't force her to stay inside. But if she were to ask me, how do I protect myself at night? I would say, well, you should stay inside. That's how you should do it.
I don't have an issue with what
So
you
we
just
agree.
said. No.
It's the semantics.
No,
you're
it's
arguing
not semantics. And this is where I don't think you quite get why there's a furore over what you say, with respect. Because the semantics point would be if we're saying the same thing in different ways, but we're not. I'm saying to you that when you say I have to have some authority over a woman, I say to you, you have no right to any authority over a woman. You do over a child if it's your child, because you are the legal appointed guardian of that child.
Understood.
You're not a legally appointed guardian or authority over your wife or female partner.
Legally appointed, absolutely not. I agree. However, when it comes to things like personal responsibility or personal safety, men, largely by society, are accepted. We're the protectors and providers. We can sit here and pretend that in the world we live in, if me and my wife were walking down the street and men were to come up and try and attack us, I wouldn't be the one fighting. But we both know in reality I would.
Right.
I have a degree of responsibility to protect her. So if I have a degree of responsibility to protect her physically, then the point I'm trying to make is I will do my best to make sure she's never putting herself in unsafe situations.
Do you wish you hadn't used the word authority?
The authority is something that she would.
So they're literally arguing semantics. If my woman, my girlfriend, wanted to go out against my wishes in a dark alleyway or however the question was phrased, it's not out of authority that I would say, no, don't go. It's out of me being like, I love you and I don't want anything to happen to you. And if it does, I would be the one left and you'd be gone. You'd die. And because of that, I want to protect you from that. So you should stay home. It's not out of authority. It's out of, I love you and I want to protect you. So this is what you should do. Because obviously you're thinking in a way that is dangerous to yourself. And I want to protect you from that.
If your significant other goes out and something happens to her, she's, killed in the process, her friends and family are going to look at you and say, where the hell were you?
Yeah. Now, the thing that people aren't accounting for here is women are weaker than men physiologically, right? There's literally 50% of the entire planet that can mess her up at any time if they want to. So I have to protect her from potential danger. So if she wants to go outside and expose herself to danger without me, it better be for a damn good reason, because she's exposing herself to danger and I love her and I want to keep her. It's not out of authority. It's out of, I don't want you to get hurt.
Give to me. She would come to me and say,
So
how can I make sure I'm as safe as possible?
But I don't want to interrupt you. I just want to point out that's not what authority means.
If someone gives, a person can give
voluntary authority is not authority.
No, but that's the point.
It's not.
Piers.
Andrew, it's not.
Piers, if a woman comes to me and says, I want you to keep me safe, she is handing me authority for her safety.
But do you understand the difference between having authority over somebody and somebody giving you permission to have authority?
Completely. I never said
one is consensual and one isn't.
But why are we pretending I do unconsensual things?
Because you literally say, I must have a degree of authority. I have to have some authority. And the point
it's kind of funny that they're still arguing about it, because the only thing that needs to be said is like, you can be given authority. Like somebody can say, okay, I want you to have responsibility of protecting me. Okay, then I have the responsibility to tell you when you can't do certain things.
Well, I still think they're arguing semantics, because whether a woman gives me authority over her or not verbally, if she didn't give me authority verbally, I would still be like, no, honey, you shouldn't go out late at night by yourself. Let me come with you. I want you to be safe.
That's fair. That's fair.
Point about
Only if
this-
I'm responsible for her safety. If I'm not responsible for her
if your
safety, I don't
position,
have authority.
if your position now is that with her permission, I would like to have authority when we go out at night to protect her, that's a different
That was
thing.
always my position.
But that's not what you said.
But that was always my position, Piers.
So again, I simply say to you,
It is what I said, though.
Do you wish you'd phrased it a different way?
No, because we're talking about long format copy where I'm talking about a woman who has come to me and said, you're responsible for making sure I'm safe. I said, well, then I have to make the decisions.
When an
which gives me
18-year-old
authority.
boy reads, I must have some authority over a woman, what do you think he thinks?
Well, I understand that, and I said this earlier when you tried to say I was backtracking, which I'm not doing. I
No,
understand.
actually, I'm not. I don't want to.
Okay.
I'm not trying to gotcha you.
Cool.
I'm trying to work out exactly what you
I
actually
understand with massive fame comes massive responsibility. I understand that a percentage of the population are always going to take everything that's said by anybody out of context.
think. Would you change the wording of what you said?
No, I would just encourage people to watch my long format copy and understand it
Would
fully.
you tell an 18-year-old boy you don't have authority over women?
Absolutely.
You would say that?
Unless a woman comes to him and says, you're responsible for my safety, please make sure, keep me safe. Like
I
my
see.
woman
Now
says,
that
comes to
Andrew
me.
Tate, I can sign up to.
Well, then we agree.
Yeah, but I don't agree with what you said before.
Because you're taking a soundbite from a 2-hour
yeah, but
conversation.
you haven't been taken out of context because I've read you the entire sentence. It's very.
But you've
debatable.
ignored all the context around the sentence, my friend.
You can't ignore a sentence that says I must have a degree of authority.
But you can when there's a 2-hour conversation where a woman is telling me if she makes me responsible for her safety and me explaining, well, if I'm responsible for your safety, I have the authority to make decisions. So yes, you've ignored all the context.
Do you respect women?
Absolutely. Why wouldn't I?
Do you think that 18, 19-year-old women are more attractive than 25-year-old women?
I think there's attractive people.
Ooh, another trap.
That's a loaded question. I don't know.
Well, it's not
Yeah.
really, is it?
I
You
can't.
know
say-
why I'm asking you?
Of course I do, but I can't sit
Well,
here and
for
say.
the benefit of viewers who don't know why I'm asking, you said this. In general, this is also one of the reasons men find youth attractive. You want to blow up the internet? I'll blow up the internet right effing now. The reason 18 and 19-year-olds are more attractive than 25-year-olds is because they've been through less dick. People say, oh, you can't say that, but yes, I can. A 19-year-old is more attractive than a 26-year-old woman, and I'll tell you why. Because that 26-year-old has talked to more guys, been to the club more times, been effed and dumped more times, more arguments, more mess, more for me to clean up. That is misogyny.
Why?
Because
Nah, that's absolutely not true, dude.
Yeah, it's not misogyny. It's not. There's no hatred or contempt of women in having a preference of younger women that have been run through less.
Yeah, and why?
But let me make a quick point here real quick. If the statement was that 18 to 20-year-old women are more attractive than 90 to 100-year-old women, no one would contest that even a little bit. But because it's still younger women that are 25, which is basically the modern feminist age, the ones that are the loudest, there's a problem. But if I stretch the extremes just a little bit more, no one would contest it on the entire internet. Young women and youth is more attractive than older women. It's just a fact. I mean, as a woman, would you date a 100-year-old man or a 20-year-old man if you're 20? Which one's more attractive? It's not even a question.
Depends on the girl.
I mean, true, but there aren't many granddaddy effers. You know what I mean?
There's a sugar baby out there that says the 100-year-old man because I know what he's got in the bank and he's on death row.
Well, that's just a woman wanting a retirement plan.
I'm just saying it exists.
All right.
you are encouraging a mindset about 25-year-old women that makes them sound out to be infinitely less desirable than 18, 19-year-olds and having effectively been having too much sex to be taken in a more respectful way.
That would, well, first,
I actually, so I see where Andrew Tate is coming from. However, I think it depends on the girl in a way. Like younger is more desirable, sure. But we live in a day and age where sometimes an 18-year-old girl already has like 100 bodies. So it's like if you meet a 25-year-old girl and you're in your 30s and she only has like 2 or 3 bodies, that's way more attractive than an 18-year-old that's been run through.
That's true.
So
I agree.
in that case, it's like you kind of got to play the cards that you're dealt. isn't as important as how many bodies she's been through. Generally speaking, have they been through more when they're older? Sure. But you gotta judge the girl, man.
Firstly, even if that was the case, that wouldn't be misogyny.
But what did you mean by what you said?
That's not misogyny because it's not anti-women. I'm saying that an 18 or a 19-year-old woman would be more desirable.
Pretty anti-25-year-old woman.
Anti-25-year-old women we can argue, but not misogyny.
Well, that's misogyny then, isn't it?
No, it's not.
Well, being anti any woman at all is misogyny.
Not when I'm saying.
It's not even anti-25-year-old woman. Because if I say there's a preference of these other girls over 25-year-old women, it's not directly against them. It's just saying that there's something slightly better.
He's stating a fact.
Yeah.
He's like, men prefer youthful.
Yeah.
That's not a lie.
If I said, you know, a girl in my past preferred my brother over me, are they anti-me? No. They just had a preference.
They had
That's
a
it.
preference. Well, that's kind of hard. We're identical twins.
Well, I know, but personality matters for girls a lot more.
That's true.
Saying that women are beautiful and attractive at a certain age and saying the age
You're
is
saying
different.
18, 19-year-olds are more attractive than 25.
Well, then ageist perhaps, but misogynistic absolutely
Is that
not.
what but you just accepted it was misogyny?
No, I didn't. You said it was misogyny.
Oh,
I'm
my
telling you, no,
goodness.
it's not.
So you don't think if you're saying slightly hateful things about a 25-year-old...
That's not slightly hateful.
Well, it is. You think you say that to a woman's face
Stretching
when she's
the
25?
It's not slightly hateful. When
So
you're,
you would go up to a 25-year-old woman and tell her exactly what I just read out.
why would I walk up to a random 20?
All right. For the record, I'm pretty sure Andrew Tate has dated women that age.
Why would you walk? True though, like you would walk up to a. That's just wanting to start a fight.
Yeah, he's the
bro.
look up
So
his
funny.
ex-girlfriends, bro.
Oh,
Anyway.
man.
Because you said it in public
and
on
say
the
that.
internet, and it's been listened to and watched by millions and millions of young,
Correct.
impressionable boys.
Correct. There was a large panel. There was a conversation. There was hours longs of conversation. There were feminists attacking men for toxic masculinity and attacking me and saying things. And I said things back which were going to antagonize
But I think,
them. Which you've done yourself a bunch of times.
I think a lot of allegations of toxic masculinity are not toxic.
Correct.
I do think that kind of sentence that I just read out, that paragraph, is actually toxic. If you genuinely mean that, and you say you wouldn't say it to a woman's face, but you said it in public about women of that age, I do think that's misogynist. And I think you probably do too.
I don't think it's misogynistic. I understand why it can be insulting.
You wouldn't say it to a woman's face.
Well, it depends. You're making out like I'm walking around the street going up to random 25
Well, effectively, you're doing it to
Yeah, dude, that was the perfect answer. I think.
Literally.
Oh man.
tens of millions of people online. There's no difference.
Not
is
at
there?
all. We're discussing a topic. We were discussing the ideal age of a man.
Should young boys, right, in their teens, are you comfortable that they would have that mindset?
You see Andrew smile, dude. He knows he's being set up. He knows it. He's like, dude. I came on this interview and this guy has like nuclear missiles pointed at my head, and I'm just dodging them.
Mind you, I've seen some of Piers Morgan's stuff and actually sided with him on certain things, like how his stance on teaching young children about transgenderism. Piers Morgan had a stance that we shouldn't do that because it corrupts our children, and he's absolutely right. We shouldn't teach sexual things to a child that doesn't understand sexuality in general. They're not even interested in those things until they're a teenager.
Also, keep in mind, guys, Piers Morgan is a trained TV host. Like, he's literally supposed to get you on the show to say stupid stuff so that he can go viral.
Yeah, that's true. Because TV cares more so about the ratings, how many people are going to see it.
Yeah, it's like, it's just a show, guys. I'm sure Piers even agrees on most of Andrew Tate's stuff, but he's like...
Maybe. I actually think he disagrees genuinely. I mean, he looks triggered, bro.
I mean...
Unless he's like a great actor too, you know? I think he's triggered.
We'll
He
see.
even, dude, one of the points that he said, he was like, and then he literally goes like this, like, and kept his nose up. Like, as if he had got him or something. Oh, man. But, bro.
I'm not playing a gotcha.
Yeah.
Be honest.
I think that young boys in their teens lack life experience. They lack nuance. and they need to be very, very careful what they're digesting online, whether it's my content or anybody else's.
Yeah,
I think
you know for a fact millions of them are digesting exactly what you're saying.
completely. The entire internet, to a degree, I think any subject you can find, there's going to be a whole heap of
I come
content.
back to the Joe Rogan thing, Andrew. Is that a lot of what you say, I agree with.
Yeah.
Right? I do, genuinely. I've written a lot of stuff you said. A lot of the stuff you talk about, I think, yeah, he's got a good point, right? So we agree about a lot of things. But when I read that kind of thing, I'm like, how much of that is you? How much of that is some act? Do you regret saying stuff like this?
I don't.
And actually, do you see it as weakness to admit you shouldn't have said something like that?
No, I don't live with regret. I think what's happened is that, like I said, long format content, arguments with feminists, arguments with the toxic masculine crowd, arguments with the left, and they're going to take a small clip, small sentence from ours, and they're going to try and paint me as a
But
villain.
I'm not left or right.
I don't know what you are, Piers.
Exactly.
So I'm sure Andrew Tate, he takes a strong stance on a really strong masculine man. That's what he's trying to portray the message and teach young men about how to be a strong masculine figure. And I guarantee you a lot of these things that are taken like completely out of context, like about property and stuff like that, I'm fairly certain, because I've consumed a lot of content in an analytical kind of way of Andrew Tate, like seeing if he's actually a misogynist, things like that. A lot of the times that he says this stuff, it's out of like almost frustration that the feminists that he usually argues against aren't getting it. So he does like an exaggerated, strong stance on it to try and get the logic through. And it just ends up perpetuating more argument and starts a fire, essentially.
I can agree with that. I mean, sometimes you want to make sure that your point comes across, and so you go a little harder than you need to make sure that they understand where you're at. Right? It's just like, it's a thing that we do in normal conversation.
That's my point. No, but that's my point.
And I understand. And you're doing exactly as I knew would happen on this interview, which is because you're a busy man. You're not going to watch hours and hours and hours of video.
Actually, I have watched hours and hours of video, and I'm going to come to the stuff where I agree with you, and I'm going to come to the stuff about your censorship, which
Sure.
I have issues with. So this is, it's a long interview, right?
Sure.
I just thought off the top, you said to me, and you were quite bold about it, well, go on, then let's go through these.
And you should keep going. I will sit here and stand by what I said. I believe that
on
man.
that, I just read to you then.
Yeah.
Do you wish you hadn't said that?
I understand how it's been misconstrued. I understand how it's been weaponized against me. Do I regret it because it's been weaponized and used against me? Well, that's slightly annoying.
That's not why I want you to
Did I
regret.
at the time mean what I said in the context of the conversation, which obviously you're not familiar with and the people at home are not familiar with? No, I meant what I said.
The 25-year-old women, they've just talked to more guys, been to the club more times, been effed and dumped more times, more arguments, more mess, more for me to clean up.
Well, there's a whole bunch of context and conversation around that's been missed, and I
I don't
encourage.
think I'm missing much context.
Well,
It's pretty-
I encourage people who are interested to go watch it.
Right, but I mean, I've just read out 3 sentences on the bounce there. I don't think there's any context I'm missing. I mean, you made it pretty clear what you think about the difference between 18 and 90-year-old women.
I wasn't
and
talking about
26-year-olds.
myself, even. I was talking with a Muslim guy who was on the panel, and he was explaining how youth is very valid.
3 sentences out of an hour, and he says there's no context missing.
With a Muslim guy who was on the panel, and he was explaining how youth is very valued in most parts of the world, and why virginity is valued in most parts of the world. The feminists were arguing against it, and I was sitting there, actually very much like you, a mediator between the two, explaining why in most of the world still today, perhaps not in the Western world, virginity is coveted, youth is coveted in most of the world, and throughout all of human history. And I was sitting there making the point, explaining why in certain parts of the world they think how they do,
Well, in large parts of the world-
even though it's very different to the Western world. So I was making a point, mediating between two groups very similar to yourself. The conversation has been misunderstood. They've taken this clip of it and it's been weaponized and used against me. I understand that is because I am now the most famous Google person on the planet. It's inconvenient, sure, but I'm definitely not a danger to women in any regard. I date women 25, 26, 27 years old all the time. None of them are offended by
There it is. Like if you look at his actual dating history, he does obviously go out with women that are closer to his age than not. I mean, 18, 19-year-old at, I don't know exactly how old Andrew Tate is, but I imagine that he's quite a bit older than, mid-20s, I imagine.
I think he's like 36 or 37.
Yeah.
Last time I checked.
Yeah, so he's around our age. So like, yeah, I'm sure he wouldn't go for like an 18, 19-year-old. So if you look at his dating history, anyway, y'all get my point.
Yeah. The things that he puts into practice in his dating life isn't directly always correlated with what he talks about. Like what the example of 18 versus 25. He was just saying that to prove a point. And it is true. I mean, if I had two options, one of them was 18, one was 25, and the one with 25 had proportionately more bodies, as if the 18-year-old had continued the same pattern until she was 25. I would choose the 18-year-old simply because, well, I guess that isn't the only standard I would rate it on, but given only the standard of body count, for example, I would choose the 18-year-old because she's going to have less to compare me to, which women do often, men do not. Things like that. Like an 18-year-old girl can still pair bond if she has had less than 3 partners. A 25-year-old cannot if she's had more than 3 partners. Things like that. There's things that I would definitely very seriously take into consideration. The value for a woman in a man's eyes is not the same thing that a woman looks for. A woman looks for a man that can inspire her, a man that can protect, a man that can provide, a man that has good morals per se, that isn't going to step outside of the relationship if that's what she wants. Depends on the woman. But what a man looks for is, can you still bond with me so that we can have a very close relationship and build a life together? And I personally, anecdotally, and I'm sure you can agree, the women that I've dated that had less bodies, like under 3, fell in love with me very deeply, and I took them seriously every time.
They treat you way different.
Yeah,
it's
for
way
sure.
different.
The bonding
It's not
is
even comparable.
so strong. Like when it just didn't work out, but when these girls when we separated, they were hurting bad, and so was I. It was a very strong bond. But I've had girls that have had a lot more bodies than just 3.
Yeah, people aren't talking about enough that, like,
hang on. I've had girls with more bodies than just 3. And when we broke up, they moved on literally in days.
Yeah. Which
to
is
another guy.
To your point, though, what I was going to say is, like, a lot of people aren't talking about it, but how many bodies has everything to do with your ability to bond with another mate. So, like, if you don't care and you're like, oh, I'm just going to sleep with, like, whoever until I meet somebody, you're never going to meet somebody, because you're always going to be like, oh, well, I can always just go out and meet another person.
Yeah. The thing that people have lost, especially now in society, is your body is something, it's the last thing you could possibly give away. And people give it away first. If you practice doing that, then you're not going to be able to form strong bonds with people, because you're literally practicing divorce. Literally.
Yeah.
I mean, when you have sex with someone, you're marrying them. You become one flesh.
Essentially.
And if you're constantly sleeping around in this sexual revolution, especially for women now, then you're literally practicing divorce. You're marrying multiple people within the same year sometimes, actually often, and then divorcing them immediately, doing the most intimate thing possible with a stranger, and then leaving. You're literally practicing not building an emotional connection. And if you do that too much, you're conditioning your brain to never be able to. But
especially for women.
Right. A sexually promiscuous woman, a woman is built more so than a man to have sex when you're bonding, when you're already have an emotional connection. Whereas men can step out of a relationship. I'm not saying this is good, by the way, but men have the capability of stepping out of a relationship and cheating on a woman, not giving a damn about that girl. We don't have to have an emotional bond to have sex, because for men, it is power. it's the only thing that gives us validation and power is conquering a woman. Literally, when a woman deems us worthy of being able to sleep with them, it's Mother Nature saying, you are a worthy enough man or valuable enough man that you were deemed worthy by a woman. And that is a hell of a lot more valuable than when a woman conquers a man, essentially, because men are constantly looking for that validation. So all men, when given or presented the opportunity with a cute enough female, will just go for it. So the woman isn't really attaining anything of value. She's literally just opening her legs. Whereas a man, they have to deem themselves worthy and go through a vetting process of the woman. So it's completely different dynamic there. All right, y'all. Thanks for sticking around. Thanks for watching. Let us know what you think in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And we'll see you guys next time.